So, in this video, I want to introduce you to Casio's brand new graphical calculator designed for A-level maths and A-level further maths. This is the fx-CG100, and this is the UK edition, permitted for use in UK exams. Now, I ordered this last week, but the very next day that I'd ordered it, a free copy arrived in college. So, in actual fact, I have had an opportunity to play around with this already, but I wanted to kind of unbox this version for you so you could see what's inside, and I'd like to be able to offer a few thoughts that I've had with this new model. Okay, so let's get into this. This is the first struggle, as you can see, just trying to actually get into the calculator. It's not too bad. Okay. All right, there's definitely something at the bottom. Right. Let's go in the other end. We have batteries. Okay. Warranty bits. Get rid of that. Okay. So, 4 AAA batteries. So that's one thing, right? So we haven't moved to a charging cable as a charging only port. So we're still on batteries, which I can't get out of the wrapper. Trying to use my immense strength in order to get there. There we go. Right. Okay, so we've got 4 batteries. Okay. So, the lid, this is, because this is a Class Wiz model, it has that clip-on lid. So, this is Casio's FX901CW, okay? So this is the same range, and it has this same clip-on lid. I don't mind this clip-on lid, actually. I find it quite easy to kind of clip on and off, so I think that's fine. I don't like the shape of it. Right, it's not like a very aesthetically pleasing, but it works. So, batteries. Okay, we are turning on. Hello. Okay, that's nice to see, isn't it? So, English, confirm, country. Right, I'm getting a few options here. So, it's quite a nice kind of menu display. The screen is large as well. I like that. Okay, all confirmed. Okay, so I'm very quickly through to the main menu. Okay, so first things first. So let's, before we kind of crack on with what the new calculator is like, I'm going to lay out my stall. Okay, so first things first. Graphical calculators. I've worked in 2 sixth form colleges. And the first sixth form college that I worked in, we didn't do graphical calculators really. I mean, we didn't really use them much at all. We did have a set of old Texas Instruments, some TI-82s, which we used for some of the statistics, but that was about it. Okay, but that's quite a few years ago now. But through my introduction to A-level teaching, a graphical calculator has never been, I must have one of those, okay? Otherwise, I cannot do A-level maths. It's never been like that. So the best, most recent Casio that I've worked with for A-level maths has been this one, and I know loads of teachers absolutely love this calculator. Unfortunately, this one was discontinued. This is the fx-901EX, so that was replaced with this Casio fx-901CW. So these are scientific calculators, not graphical ones. This one I use now and again, but I still kind of rely on this one majority of the time. But I've got to teach with these because these are now the only ones available for scientifics. Good few years ago now, though, graphical calculator-wise, I know that a number of my colleagues at other sixth form colleges use the Casio fx-CG50, which, and this is the CG100, okay, the new one is the CG100. The CG50 is widely used across the country as the main graphical calculator for A-level maths and A-level further maths. Don't know what I've got on to there. And the thing about the CG50 is, well, essentially, here's the thing. From a get up and go point of view, it is not the most intuitive calculator. The fact that Casio have to do training on this, so they offer training of how to use the calculator to teachers, essentially shows you how they're not kind of expecting teachers just to be able to pick up and play. And this has put a lot of teachers off. Whereas some teachers will say, you know, this is the be-all and end-all. Some teachers will say, this, you have to have a graphical calculator for A-level maths. You don't. You don't at all. It does help in a great deal of scenarios, but you don't need one at all. So the CG50 is, you know, if you get, some people will say, oh, I'm perfectly fine with it, and it's relatively straightforward to use. Personally, I don't think that's the case. But then again, you know, I haven't had to teach with it, okay? So I kind of know how to use it. So that's kind of like the viewpoint that I'm coming from, okay? So I find the CG50 quite a challenge, and in order to show students how to do things, I've got to teach them how to do the things, okay? You know, I always say like a few years ago, but you know, it's a good few years ago now. The graphical calculator that really caught my eye is the Numworks Calculator. So the Numworks Calculator is really pick up and play, okay? It was designed from the ground up. So the way that this works is it's intuitive, it's very easy to, you know, I don't need to teach someone how to use it. I just hand them the calculator and they can pretty much figure out how to do it themselves, okay? And it's got a few kind of advantages just from the buttons that it's got on there, okay? So from my view, right, if you're going, right, I've got the CG50 or I've got the Numworks, which of these is better, then my preference would be the Numworks, okay? I know that the CG50 can do some more things than the Numworks, but really just like the pick up and play of this, and also the customer service I found for Numworks, and the communication I've had with the company has been excellent. So, you know, from the very nature, you know, if you compare, one of the things that the new calculator has identified as a big new advance is just being able to put it into exam mode easily. The Casio CG50, you've got to like press 3-4 buttons down in order to get it to do it. Okay, the Numworks, go into the settings, go into exam mode. Okay, so for usability, this is my preferred option. Okay, so Having worked with, so I'll put the CG50 to one side now. Having worked with this CG100, what's my initial viewpoint on it? Well, the reorganization of how you navigate this, for me, is a godsend. The way that it's now using the arrow keys rather than the F keys at the top, this CG100 is so much easier just to pick up and use and find where things are. Don't get me wrong, Casio hasn't gone back to the drawing board here in its modules, in its what it has on offer. The CG50 and this, in actual things that they can do, are nigh on identical. Okay? This just makes it easier to move around and to do the things that you want it to do. So for pick up and play, it is so much easier. It makes so much more sense. Over the weekend, when I was doing a bit of maths for the new textbook that we've got coming for further maths, and I was using this to solve quadratics, cubics, quartics, and get the complex solutions, and to check some answers, and it's really good for that. I think that side of it is good. I really like it. If you know how to use the CG50, it wouldn't take you long to learn how to use this. But you know, from a student perspective, if you've got a CG50, don't now think, oh, I've got to update to CG100. You don't. Okay, the CG50 is still a calculator that is allowed in exams. Okay, so it's not like the CG50 is no longer allowed and you must get this. That is not the case whatsoever. Okay, do not go out and get a brand new calculator just because you think, right, this one is the only one that's allowed now. That is not the case at all. And if you've got a CG50 and you know how to use it, I wouldn't go out and get this calculator. So this is for new prospective students to A-level maths and A-level further maths. I like this calculator much more than I thought I was going to. There are still some things that I find odd. For example, there are essentially 4 kind of back and home buttons, all kind of at the top. Okay, I'll show you kind of like a closer look in a moment. Which and just navigating with that, with having 4 kind of back buttons, kind of really kind of like, although I know the buttons do different things, I know that, but from first appearance, it looks like there's 4 back buttons that all do the same job. Okay, I also don't like that there is no devoted pi button or I button on this. You still have to press shift and then another button. So, you know, there was an opportunity here to put a pi button in rather than maybe the comma. Okay, we don't use the comma button in here very often at all, but a pi button, you know, you use that all the time. So why isn't that one of the key buttons? Why isn't I one of the key buttons? There's also some kind of weird choices. They've got these probability simulators in here, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, why do I need a coin toss or a dice roll or a spinner or a marble grab or a card draw probability simulator for A-level maths or A-level further maths? So there's some weird choices. I also, you know, one of the things that was an issue with the CG50 was that the grapher can't draw implicit graphs. So if you want to draw a circle, there's a whole separate section for conic graphs that you need to go into. So you can't just draw them all on the same axes. So there are some things in here that I think need to be updated with the next iteration. I think they need to think about going back to the drawing board and going, right, what bits do we really need? And how can we kind of start to bring some of these things together? Can we do this without having 4 back buttons, right? So case in point, if I'm looking at a Numworks calculator, it's got a devoted pi button, it's got a devoted I button, okay? So it makes those calculations much faster when you're typing them into the calculator. One thing that I don't understand Casio's kind of position is that there is an emulator for the Casio calculators, and it's done through a website called ClassPad. But for that you need a separate login, and they don't kind of want to give away the emulator for free. But the issue that I have with that is that, fine, but students aren't able to use the emulator in the exams. They have to have a physical version of this. So if you want to use the emulator, why wouldn't you just make it like free access on the website? The Numworks does that. So there's a free simulator on there that you could just go onto the Numworks website, and there's the simulator, and you have the full access to the calculator without having any login. At the end of the day, who is buying a Casio graphical calculator like this? It's going to be students doing A-level maths, A-level further maths, or associated courses. It's not going to be, there's not going to be many sold to people in private companies or like older people that aren't students doing maths exams, because these calculations they'll just do on their computer. So I don't understand kind of like the reason why you would have everything kind of locked behind a screen like that. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. Let's take a closer look at the CG100 so you can actually kind of see what everything looks like. So here is the CG100 home screen. Actually getting to this stage of having an emulator, as I was describing, I had to go onto the Casio website, I had to fill in some details, confirm that I was a current teacher teaching at a college, and then they released a code to me which I could then put onto ClassPad in order to get the emulator, and now I have an emulator for, it said, a year. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. I mean, it's why is this not just available from the outset? I don't know. Anyway, so here we go. If you are a CG50 expert, this is probably looking very, very similar to you. So navigation just through your arrow keys, okay, which you would expect. We can go into calculate, and this all looks very similar. So let's say we wanted to do 3 pi plus 5 pi, for example, and execute 8 pi. Okay. One of the things that they have said, that Casio said, is that they have changed the format button. So this format button that is down the bottom, which on the which one is it? The CW. Just go through all the calculators that I've got over here. The 991CW, the format button has been reviled by teachers, absolutely really hating it. But the format button has been essentially turned back into the SD button, so it just changes between exact and decimal, which is perfect. You can press Shift and then the Format button, and it comes up with this whole other set of different forms that you might want. Okay, so it does have that, but again, the Pi button is hidden behind the 7. For some reason, it's 7. So wouldn't it have been great to have just had a Pi button? Likewise, the I button, so 3, Shift, 9. Okay, the I button is also hidden behind the Shift, so I need to press 2 buttons to get there, which is annoying. As I said, I'm not going to use this comma button very often that's next to the sign, so there's that. You can navigate the calculation vector so that you can see those bars at the bottom using these larger kind of arrows, buttons either side of the 4. Okay, so the arrow with a vertical line, and you can go between. So calculation, vector, matrix, and then back to calculation again. But I would say, you know, the matrix stuff that's on here, where you've got to define the matrix that the CG50 had, I always found really cumbersome and really annoying to use and really slow. Thankfully, on the right-hand side, the Tools button, there's this M cross N. Now, I'm not, as I said, I'm not a CG50 know-it-all. I assume the CG50 already had this option, but quite often I'm not going to use matrices over and over again, so defining them might, you know, takes time. So maybe instead I just want an M by N, and maybe I want a 2 by 2, and then I can find my matrix. Okay, so here's my matrix that I want. Okay, that's great. Okay, so if I want the determinant of a matrix, you can go into the catalogue, and everything, as I said, very easy to navigate. So it might go down to matrix, and maybe I want the determinant for that matrix. Okay, now can I go up and select that? Okay, I can select it, but can I then use it again? Maybe you can. Maybe you're shouting at me going, of course you can. Of course there's a copy and paste bit here. But maybe not. I mean, the fact that I'm not kind of like easily kind of like figuring out how to use this and figure that out might be tantamount to actually, you know, maybe that would have been useful for me to be able to click on that and then bring that into the determinant. Okay, so maybe I've got to type my matrix in again, unfortunately. That's a bit of a nuisance, isn't it? Okay, so maybe this is a good opportunity to show what you could have the calculator do. So let's say we go to the Numworks. So here is the Numworks Calculator, and this is all inbuilt into the Numworks website. If I go to calculation, I can define a matrix by just using Shift and then the E button, and we get this matrix, and it grows to whatever size you want it to be, okay, based on where your cursor is. So I don't have to define it's got to be a 2 by 2 matrix at the beginning. So it's just fewer button presses. And then if I wanted to find the determinant of that matrix, let's not do determinant. Let's say I wanted to do 2 times that matrix. So I wanted to multiply it all by 2. Okay, what I could do is 2 times, and then I could go up to the matrix, select it, and it automatically pastes it into that line. Press execute, and it's there. If I go back to this calculator and I try and do the same, I'm not going to be able to grab that. So if I do 2 times and I go up to that matrix there and I go execute, it takes me to this screen, which just takes me into edit. I don't really want to edit anything here. Okay. So I want to kind of copy that down. Now, is there a way of doing it? I want to think that there is. I can't see it. Okay? So I've got to write the matrix again. So it just slows me down. Okay? Little things like that you know, one calculator obviously was built from the ground up just to kind of like show that's what you could have had, right? That's what you could have. Okay, let's look at the grapher. Okay, because it's a graphical calculator, so one of the main things is going to be the grapher. So graphing is in graph and table. So let's go in there. So let's say I want to have y equals x squared. So x squared. Okay, execute. Okay, draw graph. Okay, draw. Right, there's my y equals x squared graph. Okay, so moving the arrow keys allows me to move around up and down. So kind of navigating it that way. Okay, just going to try pressing the OK button, see if that does anything. Okay, let's see if catalog or tools. Tools allows me to change the graph a little bit. Oh, there you go. You can do a tangent line. Okay, so now I can move around, get to my tangent. Okay. Oh, that just allows me to put a point on. Oh, it draws the whole line, keeps it on there. So these are some things that I'm kind of like going, well, because it's more intuitive now, I find, to find things, it's more likely that I'm going to find these things that I can do on the calculator, you see, right? It's about that pickup and playability. Okay, that's that then. So it doesn't really kind of like, I expect there's a way of telling what the equation of that line is. Okay, maybe. Okay, fine. What about, let's get rid of that. Okay, let's think about, let's say, sine x. Let's try that. It's a classic. Draw graph. Draw. Okay, here's sine. Okay. Seems reasonable. Seems fine. For a comparison, let's look at the Numworks. So grapher. If we want to do y equals x squared, you could just type in x squared and it knows that that's y equals x squared. Plot graph. Okay. And then moving the keys around doesn't navigate the graph, it traces it around the curve. So if you want to navigate, you can go up to navigate, and then you can move around. Use the plus or minus to zoom in and out. Okay. Let's change it to sine x. Okay, so you can actually go up to auto and it'll auto graph it for you. If you wanted a tangent, you can do that as well. So it's just like, the thing is, what I'm doing here, although the main thing about this is Actually, I didn't want that. I want to find. What I'm trying to do is trying to kind of like show you what else is available. Here's the tangent line. And you can see it's actually giving the equation of the tangent line. So if I wanted the tangent at pi over 3, okay, so it can tell me that. So I'm just kind of like showing you that there's other things out there, and it's good to kind of compare these calculators so that you know kind of like what you have available to you. The last thing I think I'm gonna look at is the distribution stuff, the statistical distributions. The main thing that when the Numworks was released, the main thing that caught my eye was the distributions. So this was probably about 4 or 5 years ago now. So if I go to the distribution section on the Numworks, and binomial, uniform, etc. So if I go to binomial, for example, let's put 20 and 0.4 in, and the fact that it kind of draws me the graph, I can go, right, I want less than or equal to 5, it shades in the correct portion, and I can look either between or to the right or an exact probability. Okay, this, for me, going from a scientific to a graphical, this felt like a game changer. Okay, now the distribution applet that's on the CG100 here was added kind of quite soon after the Numworks got released. So this is what it looks like. And you can see, there are similarities here to how it is displayed. So the binomial distribution, for example, and this should look fairly similar to CG50 veterans. So let's say I wanted to do number of trials was 20, and I wanted less than or equal to 5, and the P was 0.4. Execute. Okay, and it draws me the graph. And, I can change the number at the top, so I can change that to a 6 if I wanted to, or a 7. And it shades in that portion of the graph, just like the Numworks does, and does a very nice display of it. If I was trying to do this on the CG50, I'd find it quite difficult to navigate everything. And I think, these buttons of how you kind of like move about. So there I'm trying that back button again. It's doing nothing. So that back button doesn't take me back to the home, which, I would ordinarily think it would. So I've got to press the home to get there. So it's the fact that you've got this home button, this back button, this left button, and also this left button, all in the same vicinity, feels like I should be able to go back through menus using all of them, which feels redundant. But I know that, you're going to get used to using the calculator, you'll get used to, which button does which. So, I've only scratched the surface of what this calculator can do. What I would say is that for schools and colleges that use the CG50 and are used to using the CG50 and promote it, I would expect they're going to be really pleased with this calculator. It does look good. It is very easy to use. I quite like it. As I said, I was using it over the weekend, and I think it's been really good. it does some things well. My personal viewpoint is that if I was advising a student of which calculator to get, if they want a scientific, right, then the scientific to get is this one, okay, because this one is available. The one that I use all the time, the fx-CG100, there have been a number of fake versions of this online, so I wouldn't try and buy one of these online, okay, unless it's, unless you know who you're getting it from. So there have been a number of fake versions of that, so don't try and buy that one, I would say. This one is perfectly good. Some teachers just don't like it because it's not a good update. It's not a very good update at all, really, from the EX model. But if you're going to go for a graphical calculator, this calculator, the CG50, really very soon is not going to be an option. Again, just like this one, these are now old and gone. Okay, this will be discontinued in September, I think, so you won't be able to buy that one. So there are other graphicals on the market, of course. I would say the two biggies will be the Casio CG100, the Numworks Calculator. My preference would be the Numworks. I know that it doesn't do as much, but in the sense of there are some kind of you can do more kind of playing about with things on here, I would say. But the Numworks is so easy to use and so pick up and playable, and for accessibility reasons of just having the pi button on the front is great. When I say what can this do that the Numworks can't, for example, the Numworks can't at the moment solve a quartic equation with complex roots. Okay, so but this one can. Right? How many times that's going to be an issue? It's unlikely. Okay, so there are kind of some circumstances where this is going to trump this one, but there are a great number of situations where I would say that this trumps this one. Okay, that's my personal opinion. Other people will have personal opinions and go this one, they'll prefer this one. Some people will go, don't get a graphical at all, just stick with a scientific. You can make up your own mind.